Welcome to Totally Unqualified Sports. We are your hosts, Francesco and Chandler. I go by Checko for short, and this is Totally Unqualified Sports. Welcome to Totally Unqualified Sports, Episode 1. And welcome. This is the first time we're doing this. This is pretty exciting, I think.
I'm very excited.
I'm really excited about this. So we just want to let you know a little bit about ourselves before we get right into our podcast here. I am born and raised from San Diego, California. I grew up watching the Chargers with my dad. We actually had season tickets to the Chargers from 1998 to 2009. So I grew up in Qualcomm Stadium as a kid, basically. Like, I grew up loving the Chargers. Originally a Bronco fan as a kid. I was a big Terrell Davis fan, but then the minute we drafted LaDainian Tomlinson, it kind of changed it up a bit there. But
Makes sense.
Makes sense a little bit, you know. But still a fan, still a diehard Charger fan. I call them the Los Angeles Chargers of San Diego. I would think that's more what they belong in. But regardless of that, that's a little bit about me. Like I said, I played football when I was in high school. I didn't go off to college and do any of that. I didn't do any professional, but like I said, I grew up at Qualcomm Stadium. I love talking football. That's my niche. I just love talking about football. I love talking about different teams. I love talking about my team. I like to just talk anything football related. So that's a little bit about me. That's a little bit about what I bring to the table here. Like I said, I'm totally unqualified to do this, but I believe in what we're doing here. So
Here we are. My name is Chandler Michalowski. I am 25 years old from Rancho Cucamonga, California. I am a Jacksonville Jaguar fan. I don't know why, and it disappoints me every Sunday. Probably results in some mild depression. Just Sundays, though. Just Sundays.
Sundays.
I'm pretty on top of everything most of the time. A little bit about my football background. I played all years in high school and 1 year in college. Tried it out for a little bit. It is what it is. So let's get into it.
the one big thing this offseason is the quarterbacks right now. This has been a huge – it's really different of a season because it's just – there's so many different trades that could happen, so many different things going on.
And a really strong quarterback class coming in, where
Yeah.
5 quarterbacks could all legitimately be drafted in the first round.
And to be honest, I think that's what's going to happen. We're definitely going to see
100%.
5 quarterbacks go in this first round. So the first topic we're going to talk about is the top 5 college quarterbacks. We're going to give our personal top 5 who we think ranks 1 through 5. We've pretty much agree on who the top 5 quarterbacks are.
Yeah, pretty.
I think we have
pretty
them
understood. Yeah.
I think we have them in pretty different areas, so to speak. So I'll start off real quick with my top 5. So coming in at number 1 for me, I think we all agree it's Trevor Lawrence.
Trevor Lawrence, baby.
There's no question that Trevor Lawrence is the first surefire. He has one of the highest rated, opinions. I don't want to say opinions. I would say he's one of the most top rated guys ever.
Mm-hmm.
Really, I think everyone keeps talking about
Peyton Manning.
the next Peyton Manning, the next John Elway, the next Andrew Luck, because really those are the 4 quarterbacks that had the highest graded coming out of college. So the fact that you're in that class and you're getting considered those, you're talking about 2 first ballot Hall of Famers, and you're talking about a guy who obviously retired early, but was having a very good career going forward. Like, there was no question that Andrew Luck was a top 10 quarterback. I mean, at worst, maybe top 12. At worst,
Coming out of college, yeah, 100%.
Or just like
He was a 4-year starter, but to touch more on Trevor Lawrence right there is, I remember he's also my top-rated quarterback right now coming into the 2021 NFL Draft. Mm-hmm. But I actually remember seeing highlights on him on Instagram when he was in high school. So, that long hair, the Sunshine Kid State kind of thing.
Sunshine.
Sunshine. So I'm all about Trevor Lawrence. I mean, Jacksonville Jaguars have the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. I'm all in on Trevor Lawrence right there. Let's go ahead and my number 2 quarterback is actually Justin Fields. Personally, I fell in love with Justin Fields that Clemson game when he beat Trevor Lawrence. He looked really, really good. I fell in love with Justin Fields that day, where I could totally understand if a team had him as the number 1 quarterback ranked.
Absolutely, and I'm with you on the second. That's my second quarterback is Justin Fields. I actually am getting really frustrated with the fact that you're seeing all these people come out and really questioning his skills, to me he does have that it factor. Because like you said, against Trevor Lawrence, he got hurt in that game and yet still came back and still dominated that game. And that's that it factor that people look for. Does he have the best arm? Does he have the best durability or so? Sometimes some guys don't have that, but that it factor that pushes them to get that W is what makes him important to me. And if you give him the right team, the right scheme, the right fit, and the determination,
he's definitely going to need help around him. And the quarterback that I kind of see him as most comparable to is probably Dak Prescott.
Yeah, I agree.
I kind of see him as very much like a Dak Prescott right there. I'm not trying to lie. Hey, I like Dak Prescott, and he's a good quarterback. He's not the best quarterback, but as an NFL comparison, I think Justin Fields and Dak Prescott are very, very similar styles.
And I mean, right now we don't know exactly where Dak Prescott, if he's going to be a Cowboy or not. He could end. Justin Fields could be a Cowboy. Who knows at the end of it all? We'll see how it is.
What's your number 3?
So number 3 comes in as Zach Wilson.
Same.
Zach, he's just a quick release guy. The one thing that separates him from Justin Fields, I think, is that Justin Fields looks like when he's like, okay, I'm going to this guy, he's going to go to that guy. Zach is going to look at every option, which I think is a pretty good indication that, okay, it doesn't matter who's open. It doesn't matter what the name is of the guy. It doesn't matter if you have a high-paid receiver over here or a low-paid receiver over here. If you're open, I'm getting the ball to you no matter what. And he has a quick zip on it that I really like. The one thing is that he does right now. It's that golden boy mentality right now. Everyone's in love with Zach Wilson. Some people are putting
he's flying up the draft boards.
Some people are even putting him over Trevor Lawrence, which I'm just that's kind of that's
understand.
frustrating to me a little bit. But I do think that Zach Wilson can be really, really good. I think he's one of those quarterbacks similar to Fields where maybe he needs some time to sit behind a guy first and foremost, a bridge. I'm okay with guys sitting for a little bit. Not everyone can be Burrow and Herbert.
I'm totally cool with a lot of guys sitting. I mean, even Justin Herbert sat for a game and a half. Aaron Rodgers sat for 2 years. Lamar sat for half a season. You can't argue with some of the results of the quarterbacks that sit. For me, Zach Wilson's also number 3. After watching tape on him, I think actually he might have a stronger arm and more athletic than Justin Fields. He might have a stronger arm and more athletic than Justin Fields. Watching tape on him, some of the inconsistencies in his footwork and his base, sometimes he gets a little heel clicky. Yeah. I've noticed that a little bit just from what I've seen. But, I mean, we saw Justin Herbert. He kind of had a lot of flaws in his game coming out of college right there, probably just because he didn't develop as much. But Zach Wilson kind of does remind me as a guy who has a really, really high floor. Josh Allen, Justin Herbert. I don't know what his metrics are for how tall he is or anything like that, but I'm assuming he's at least 6'2", 6'3".
Yeah, I agree. I think that, again, you never know where anyone's going to go. The right team, like we said, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, they went to the right team. They went to the right system with the right quarterback. If that's what's going to happen with Zach Wilson, he's not like a Trevor Lawrence where you go to the team and you can just transform around him. Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't matter really from a coaching standpoint and stuff like that. But Zach's definitely a guy where, if like the Niners get a hold of him, where he can sit behind Jimmy.
I would really like him on the 49ers for sure.
That'd be really, really interesting. The Panthers, they got Teddy Bridgewater right now as a starter, but
they're definitely looking for a quarterback, though.
They're definitely looking for a quarterback. Zach Wilson with Matt Rule could be interesting. I do think Carolina is in a very prime position where there's a lot of upside. They're going in the right direction as a franchise, and they just need to hit the quarterback correctly.
Not just that, but I think with Teddy Bridgewater as their quarterback right now, they have a lot of time. I think he might have signed like a 2-year deal or a 3-year deal, so he's not going to be on the team for a long term. But I could see them drafting a Zach Wilson, Mac Jones, Trey Lance, someone like that, trying to develop them early on, trading Teddy Bridgewater later on, something like that, where those even Justin Fields, they can sit behind Teddy Bridgewater for a year, who's very similar to maybe like an Alex Smith, and then they'll be ready to go.
And it's a very Teddy's a good quarterback, but I do agree he's that Alex Smith, that Ryan Fitzpatrick, where they are that journeyman bridge quarterback. You're not going to hate them. You're not going to hate them as a
But
as
you're
a
not
fan,
ready to buy in.
But you're not going to you're not going to buy in fully on those guys. So I do like that.
Now, what I am interested in is who you have at number 4 and 5, because personally, I have Mac Jones at 4, Trey Lance at 5.
So I actually flipped that. I got Trey Lance at 4, Mac Jones at 5.
So what do you feel is Trey Lance is better than Mac Jones that would warrant maybe like so let's say he gets drafted to a like 5-6 picks ahead of him.
So I would say for Trey, the thing that intrigues me about Trey is that the upside and the mobility that he has and is capable of. Now, obviously he had that one season where he didn't throw a single pick in the season, and it's hard to judge this season due to COVID and everything. And
he only threw 2 picks. He had light practices, 1 game. So honestly, those 2 picks don't really bother me at all.
Right. And the thing for me with him is that there is that really, really interesting upside. And they talk about the fear of the unknown. I think it's not just fear of the unknown. It's an opportunity of the unknown where we don't know exactly how good this kid can be. And if you put him on the right team, we know teams like we brought up Carolina, Washington. There's a couple teams, New England, even with Bill Belichick, if he's able to get a hold of a guy like this with that kind of potential, I mean, there's a very high ceiling and an unknown ceiling, I feel like, with Trey Lance. Whereas I feel Mac Jones, it's a little bit different. I think Mac Jones has definitely shocked a lot of people when it comes to him and what he's been able to do with Alabama. But that's also my concern with him, is that he's coming from Alabama, and as we've seen with a lot of quarterbacks from big schools, that's another reason why with Justin Fields too, it's a little nerve-wracking because he is from Ohio State. That's a big school. They draft and get a lot of players to come to those kind of schools.
I mean, the thing is, though, is that like you can't fault guys for being on good teams. True. You can't fault guys for being on good teams and wanting to go to good schools, because wouldn't you do the same exact thing? And hey, it's putting him in the first round of the NFL draft. I have no problem with a guy kind of leaning on some star players every once in a while, because those are like they're going to get drafted later on in the draft more than likely. They might have some really, really solid wide receivers around them, tight ends, different things like that. Especially unless they're on the Patriots or something, like I don't really see them being huge draft busts.
True, that's a very good point. And I think, again, Mac Jones, definitely, for me, he's leaning towards the Patriots pretty hard because of Bill Belichick.
I do see him as a Patriot.
Bill Belichick gets that first
very New
look.
England.
Very New England.
And Nick Saban and Bill Belichick are friends.
It just makes
But I mean,
of
course, you could have said that same thing about Tua, all the other quarterbacks that came from Alabama before him. Mm-hmm. So who knows what's really going on in Bill Belichick's head.
Right. So I want to actually give a question to you. What is there another quarterback in this draft that maybe is not in the top 5 that could be, a guy that we don't see? Because we have seen guys like Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott, guys that come later on, and then they shock through, because we just saw recently, from 2009 to 2016, all first-round quarterbacks are on a completely new team now. That's
or not in the league.
Or not in the league. So what that's showing you is that sometimes even the first-round quarterbacks that you get, it just doesn't work out sometimes. And so
Russell Wilson, 3rd-round pick.
He's a 3rd-round pick. And yet he's one of the top 5, top 3 quarterbacks in the NFL. Dak Prescott, while has his flaws and everyone's kind of up or down on him, I don't think you can say he's in the bottom 15 or 16 of the team.
No, of course not.
He's definitely in the top 15 of quarterbacks.
But I do have a guy, I think Sam Ehlinger from Texas. Sam Ehlinger from Texas, I really, really like his athleticism, very Taysom Hill-like. I could see him definitely being like an offensive weapon kind of guy for his first couple seasons out of Texas. We'll see where he goes. I'm trying to imagine where he would go. Probably a team that's going to draft a quarterback in the 3rd or 4th round is already going to have their long-term guy in place, and then maybe think about moving on. Honestly, maybe the Saints. They already struck kind of like a semi-gold with Taysom Hill. Might as well bring in a backup that can do the exact same thing.
True. My big thing with Ehlinger is that I do think he has limited on the arm strength, so that's going to be interesting how to deal with it. But again, if Sean Payton's able to do what he did with Drew Brees with his limited arm ability right now, the right coaches can work around that. And Sean Payton's definitely a guy that could work around that.
Yeah. Sam Ellinger, book it for the Saints.
I can't really pick exactly where he would go right now. Because, again, I want to see how the free agency works out and see what teams go with specific quarterbacks.
The reason why I'd say Sam Ellinger with the Saints and them starting Taysom Hill is because they are so deep in the cap space right now. Negative like 80 or 90 million, something like that. Something crazy where they are going to have to cut lots of star players, restructure a lot of deals. They're going to have to maybe even trade some guys. That's why I think Michael Thomas is on the trade block, different things like that. And then that way, man, I just see them really kind of just having a down year.
Yeah.
Having a down year. Maybe they win 4, 5, 6 games at the very most, and that's it.
And you also hear the fact that, obviously Russell Wilson is not he hasn't requested a trade, but his agent did come out to say that if you are thinking about it, these are the teams that we would like, and I think the Saints were on that list.
Totally.
And obviously they would have to move a lot and let go of a lot to make room for Russell on that team. But again, Sean Payton with Russell Wilson would be crazy.
I just don't think they have the cap space.
I
wouldn't
agree.
even. I personally, I just can't even consider it because of their cap situation. Like it's almost like kind of just like they're gonna have to trade every single player on the team just to get that done.
Yeah, it's going to take way too much.
But so that's our top 21 quarterbacks for the NFL draft. Trevor Lawrence, unanimous number 1. Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, Mac Jones, and Trey Lance arguing for that 4th and 5th spot right there.
It's going to be really interesting. I think we're going to get more and more into these guys a little bit more, especially as the draft gets closer. And we're going to get more into some of the other guys like Kyle Trask, like Ellinger. There's going to be a lot of different guys.
I didn't even think about Kyle Trask.
And I'll get more into Kyle Trask. I really want to get into about him because I'm
a little later though.
A little bit later. I have mixed feelings about him right now. But so we're going to get into our second topic here. And our second topic is actually going to be a game. And the segment is basically going to be called Quarter Hat. So we have a bunch of quarterbacks, free agents, trade possibilities, all in this Indiana Jones style hat here. So we're basically going to go one-on-one, each pick a guy out of the hat, and we're just going to, off the top of our head, give our best opinions, who's going to go where, things like that. So, Chandler, you can start us off with the first pick, just one. Don't even look in the hat. Don't even look. Don't even feel.
I got Jacoby Brissette.
That's
Jacoby Brissette. He was the backup on the Colts last year, free agent. I really see him probably maybe more competing for a backup spot or a starting spot, someone with questions at the quarterback position, or maybe even going and being another backup. If he goes to Denver, maybe competes with Drew Lock for the starting spot. If he goes to Minnesota, I just don't see him outplaying Kirk Cousins.
I agree with that. I actually want to say that for me, Jacoby Brissette would be perfect for Denver because he's not a big threat to Drew Lock, but it's definitely a lighting a fire under Drew Lock's butt.
Or maybe even Oakland, getting Derek Carr, Vegas.
Hey,
I'm always going to have that problem. Always going to have that problem.
As a Charger fan, I feel it because even I would say Oakland is just the Raiders. It's hard to put them in Vegas.
100%.
But honestly,
hey, I like them as the Las Vegas Raiders. That stadium looks pretty nice.
The stadium does look nice. As a Charger fan, that
go ahead and pick your quarterback.
All right, so let's see what we got here. All right, let's see. Dak Prescott. So this is interesting, man, because I remember watching that game when he got hurt. That was a nasty injury. I feel so bad for him. Honestly, it's hard to pick a team not the Cowboys because I just think Jerry Jones is so about him, but they're not fully sold on him yet. And I think the big thing is that he's had an offensive lineman, he's had a running game, he has receivers, and yet they just can't seem to get over that top edge. But Dak put Romo into retirement. Like, there's no question that you can't overlook that he put Romo into retirement because of his playing time and because of his leadership. So I say Dak stays a Dallas Cowboy, and if he doesn't stay a Cowboy, if there had to be another team that I would say he should go to where I feel it's the best option, I would have to say the Chicago Bears, because Matt Nagy right now obviously is on the hot seat, But I do think Nagy has a play. I think he has a scheme, just hasn't had the right quarterback for it. And to be honest, when Dak starts running around, he's really good. Like, the fact that he's trying to stay in the pocket kind of like Russell and be the quarterback, that's a big thing that you just got to let him run sometimes. Obviously, the injury was a reason why, him running. But I think Chicago would be the best other option besides Dallas, where they can get him in there. They have a good defense. Second place is up in the air for the NFC North. Like, it's the Packers for sure, but then it's everybody else. You could make a good case for the Vikings, the Lions, because of the upside that they can have. Chicago, you can put anyone there. And to be honest, I think Chicago really is the only other team that could see Dak in another uniform. So,
I just think that Jerry usually pays his guys. And I understand they're like relatively probably close or over the cap. This might be the one guy that has gone to odds with Jerry, and so I could see him definitely getting traded. But I think a good fit with him would be the Bears, would be Seattle if Russell Wilson gets traded. And then just a team. The Bears might be the best fit for him, but being in Chicago, I think they might be looking for a guy with a stronger arm. They drafted Mitch Trubisky because of his upside. They might be looking for a guy with a much stronger arm than Dak Prescott.
I agree. It honestly, it's really hard to pick the right spots because I do think Dak really wants to win, but the teams that need a quarterback are not in the best position sometimes when it comes to winning. So It's hard to really pick, but yeah, I agree. All you can think about is either Seattle or Chicago, and that's if Seattle moves on from Russell.
Only if they move on from Russell Wilson, which I don't see why they ever would.
Exactly. So it's going to be interesting to see. So second round here, take a pick.
Move a little bit. Derek Carr. Okay, so Derek Carr. I see him staying in Vegas and having to compete or fend off a second quarterback. I think he hasn't been bad enough where he's warranted to move on just yet. This is going to be the last kind of year. I probably would have said that last year too. But this might be the last year. They looked really, really good. I mean, they beat the Kansas City Chiefs. They beat the Kansas City Chiefs in the regular season, and they looked unbeatable, where you just got to outscore them, and Derek Carr did that. And just solely from that game, I'm okay with Derek Carr getting one extra year competing for his spot, maybe. Having to fend off a guy like Mitch Trubisky, Nick Foles, Jacoby Brissette that we were just talking about. Yeah. Where a veteran quarterback who can either compete or maybe they even draft a guy. Who knows what's going on in Mike Mayock and John Gruden's heads.
I'm really confused because, like I said, I think Derek Carr, and, non-biased opinion here, like, obviously as a Charger fan, we can get some biasness in here, but Derek Carr's the best quarterback they've had since Rich Gannon, and that's not an opinion. That's a straight fact. And
I actually was a big fan of Derek Carr coming out of Fresno State. Devontae Adams also was his receiver when Derek Carr threw 50 touchdowns coming out of college.
That's 50. True. That's true. And to be honest, when you talk about other teams, if there was a team, I do agree. I think Derek Carr is going to stay in Vegas. If ever Rodgers does leave, if that comes to a point, going to Green Bay would be interesting.
I mean, Jordan Love.
It's a tough situation. But like I said, I just can't. There's quarterbacks where it's just really hard at this point to see where they can and can't go. And Derek Carr is one of them where it's like Dak Prescott. It's hard to see him in a different uniform. Not because he's this great, amazing player. It's just that
he's good enough. He's the Andy Dalton right now, probably.
Dude, I don't even know about that. That's tough to say.
Derek Carr's probably better than Andy. Guaranteed better than Andy Dalton.
Both Derek and Dak are better than Andy Dalton.
Guaranteed.
That's not even a question. I just think that it's hard to pick. If I had to pick for Derek Carr, if ever they were to move on from Big Ben, that'd be an interesting spot. Is in Pittsburgh. That'd be an interesting spot. Again, I just think that it's the best spots I think for Derek are currently filled.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be
unless
hard
he goes to New Orleans.
Again,
but even then, I think that's tough. Filled with Taysom Hill.
Yeah,
I think they're going to rock with Taysom Hill.
It's tough. It's a tough decision to pick. So we'll see where that goes. So let's see for me what I get here. pick. Huh. So I got Sam Darnold. So, Sam Darnold. I feel so bad for Sam Darnold. I really do, man. To get Adam Gase is a tough thing.
And one of the worst rosters, like no running backs, no receivers, no tight ends, like
it's
no
so
offensive
tough.
line.
And he's also had a lot of problems with injuries. And what's also as bad is that he was the golden boy of that draft. He was supposed to be the number one pick. And when he fell to the Jets, it was just like they threw him a party.
I think I had seen some stat on Twitter. I don't know who tweeted it or anything like that, but like he had dealt with bottom 5 or bottom 10 offensive position groups and defense as well.
It's been tough. I mean, they did.
Who can win with that?
It's tough. So I do think he needs to leave New York. I think it is time for him to get out of New York. The thing, though, is that it's going to be hard for a team to trust him as the full-time starter. It's going to be hard for them to just be like, yep, you're the guy now, because of what has happened. Regardless that he had Adam Gates, he could have, with his potential and things, to show that
he has some solid throws. I think that's why I think he's a starter in the NFL. He's maybe a bottom-end starter, but he's a starter in the NFL. He'll go probably win some games, but he's going to definitely need some help around him, at least for the time being, to kind of see if he can develop and mature into someone like a top-tier Big Ben.
And that's why I think the best spot for Sam Darnold, to be honest, is probably, it's tough. There's a couple spots I can think of. There's you have the Niners that have a pretty good offensive line. They have these young, speedy guys. They got a great defense. And then you have these other places like Washington, where with Ron Rivera, a pretty good O-line, great defense. They got Terry. They got Antonio Gibson.
I wouldn't mind Sam Darnold on the Washington football team.
It's a really good team. I'm just going to throw a team out there, though. I'm going to say that the Minnesota Vikings trade for Sam Darnold and have him as the backup to Kurt. Because even though Kurt puts up good numbers, that's what he did in Washington. The teams have been mediocre, and he has underplayed, not in the sense of statistics, but when they got Kirk Cousins in free agency,
it was to win a Super Bowl because they went there with Case Keenum to the NFC Championship game.
And yeah, exactly.
Lost it. They should have, with Kirk Cousins, he's better than Case Keenum. And he's better than Case Keenum. They should have won at least or gone to a Super Bowl with the talented roster.
And that was the thing. And that was the thing. The minimum for Kurt was to get to the Super Bowl. At minimum, get and lose in a Super Bowl. That was the bare minimum they were asking him. And he's missed, of the 3 seasons, he's missed the playoff twice. Mm-hmm. And you beat the Saints. That's great. You got your butt kicked by the Niners. But again, you had a defense. You had these young weapons. And now that defense is gone. Mm-hmm. But now that he's got weapons, Justin Jefferson's there. Dalvin Cook has become easily the second best running back. Only you could say Derrick Henry, I think, is better. But you put Sam Darnold as the backup. He can now sit and learn a little bit and take some time to breathe.
Put some pressure on Kirk Cousins. Hey, man, if you can't win at least 1 or 2 playoff games this year, this might be your last season in Minnesota.
Honestly. And to be honest, I think he's had some bad games. And I believe some Vikings fans have talked to me and they said that,
he can't win in prime time.
And that's a big thing. So you give Sam Darnold those weapons. I think that shows off a lot of talent. Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen. You have Dalvin Cook to hand the ball off to. I don't think that's a bad team.
Offensive line is solid as well.
Absolutely. And I think that obviously, like I said, Washington, there's a couple other teams. I think the Patriots would be interesting to get Sam Darnold, but again, I don't think the Jets would trade
in division. Very rare does that ever happen, let alone to the Patriots.
And give Bill Belichick that kind of untapped potential. Yep. So I think the Vikings would be interesting. I think that they need someone else behind Kurt to put some fire under him to get him back to that. You like that. Get that back into him. And if it doesn't, you got Sam Darnold for a year.
I'm gonna ship him
see
out.
what he got and see what happens. So
only thing I'm thinking about why Kirk Cousins might stay is I'm not sure where his contract is. I know it was one of the very first contract that was like 100% guaranteed. But I'm not too sure. But that was about Sam Darnold.
Right. Well, like I said, he signed a 2-year deal. So
yeah.
But like I said, Sam has 1 year. He has a 1-year deal. You had to maybe give up a second or a third for Sam Darnold. You're not going to get a first. Sorry to New York for that. But like I said, I think he could rock it in Minnesota. Like I said, that division is open to second place. You can make the playoffs in the NFC with that. And so I think Sam there would make good sense and get that opportunity. It's just going to be really hard for a team to trade for Sam and that be the only quarterback they have in their roster. To just be like, yep, you're the guy. We're going to trust you. We are going to gamble that. So it's really tough to pick a team like that, but I would lean towards Minnesota.
I can see why.
So now we got the third round here. This will be our last hat movement here, and then we will move on to.
I have Mitch Trubisky.
Speaking of Trubisky,
in all honesty, I just don't see Mitch Trubisky as a starter in this league anymore. I think he kind of had his time in Chicago. He had, I think Matt Nagy is an underrated coach. I think he's just had some unlucky times with Mitch Trubisky and Nick Foles, just with what he's been dealing with out there. I can see Mitch Trubisky getting signed to Las Vegas, getting signed to Jacksonville if we draft Trevor Lawrence. Of course, I honestly wouldn't really like Mitch Trubisky on the team just because if Trevor Lawrence gets hurt, oh God, I'd lose my mind. I regret saying that at all.
Dude, I don't
speak that into existence because but Mitch Trubisky's a hard one. I'd have to say he's going to be a backup somewhere. Where they already have like a guaranteed starter, kind of just like what happened with Jameis Winston.
Absolutely.
Kind of similarly what happened with Jameis Winston, where maybe Mitch Trubisky goes to Tampa Bay, learns under Tom Brady for a little bit, or something like that.
Well, let me.
Mitch Trubisky, honestly, Tampa Bay. That's what I'm gonna go with, Tampa Bay, because I bet you Bruce Arians probably thinks he can fix Mitch Trubisky.
Well, I'll raise you something even better with that. What about Mitch Trubisky backing up Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs? Because Andy Reid is a quarterback. Quarterback guru.
I see that too.
And listen, I'm not saying Trubisky is going to start in any way.
He's going to have to take a major low veteran deal. Something that had Cam Newton had to take, something similar to that, where it might be $1, $2, $3 million.
And again, no one's going to really trust Mitch Trubisky right now when it comes to being the quarterback. And I know some Chicago Bear fans do like what he did towards the end of the season, getting them to the playoffs. But it's going to be so hard. And listen, there was a guy named Jim Plunkett who was a bust for the Patriots. Mm-hmm. First overall pick, bust. Went to San Francisco for a year or two, I believe, and then went to the Raiders and then won 2 Super Bowls. So this could be that thing where Trubisky is, didn't pan out in Chicago, goes to a team for a year or two where he sits, learns, marinates, and then goes somewhere else where he gets an opportunity, whether injury or whether coming in at some point or something, and taking advantage of that situation. So I think this is the part where he needs to sit, learn, marinate behind someone. And like you said, Tampa Bay is a good spot. I think Kansas City with Andy Reid, who knows how to develop good quarterbacks and whatnot. And I think he can maybe unlock something for Mitch Trubisky. And I do think Mitch Trubisky is getting tired of hearing all this. The fact that Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes were drafted after him. I think it's going to
and they're both a lot better.
Exactly. And it's I think it's eating at him. Obviously, it would eat at him to be the backup to Patrick Mahomes.
To someone who got drafted after him. But here's the thing with Mitch Trubisky. He only started, I think, 1 year in college and then was way overdrafted at like number 2 or number 3 overall, something like that. So I can't fault him too much because, you're not going to get drafted and say, sorry, I don't want to go number 2 when you definitely shouldn't have. It looks like even been in the top half of the first round.
Yeah, absolutely. And
this is going to be the last name right there.
So let's see what we got here. The last name that we will be picking for the night. Let's see. It is Alex Smith. I'm actually really glad to pick Alex Smith on this one. So you just got to
What a story. Comeback player of the year.
What a story that Alex Smith was able to come back after all the stuff he is. So that's an amazing story. But to put that aside, he is in his late 30s. He doesn't have the arm that a lot of other quarterbacks have. And he did throw okay in Washington. It wasn't the best. His numbers weren't that great. It's going to be hard for a team to trust him to be that. So he is going to be a backup.
I don't think he's going to be a backup, but I do see him having another typical Alex Smith landing
season
where he's going to have to have a tutelage at a quarterback. Probably not sure if I even use that word right. He's going to have to probably go to a team. I would not hate Alex Smith coming to Jacksonville. Urban Meyer was his head coach in college at Utah. Boom. I see that right there. That's Alex Smith. Then they draft Trevor Lawrence. Alex Smith is a really, really good quarterback to learn from, where he's probably very similar to Ryan Fitzpatrick, who I also would love on the Jaguars. But Alex Smith to the Jaguars, that would be one of my dream quarterback signings. Problem is that we might have to pay him a little too much, but with our cap space, that's okay.
And the thing is, obviously, like, you have Trevor Lawrence. If you don't pick Trevor Lawrence first overall, what the heck is happening?
If they don't pick Trevor Lawrence, I will boycott the Jaguars.
And then if you do get Alex Smith, obviously you would have to trade Gardner Minshew, because I just don't, like, how would you bury Gardner Minshew on the depth chart like that?
Well, we wouldn't. I think we could honestly, we could definitely get more for Gardner Minshew than someone could get for Sam Darnold.
That's a good point.
Because here's one of the reasons why. Here's one of the reasons why his cap hit is like $800,000. Mm-hmm. He was a 6th-round quarterback, and I'm pretty sure probably a late of the round.
He was a 6th-rounder.
Yeah, 6th-round quarterback, but I think he was closer to the end of the 6th round as well. So I'm not sure where Gardner Minshew would go. I'd love him in San Francisco. At the same time, I could see us getting a 1st-round pick for Gardner Minshew. I mean, Matt Stafford got 2 1st rounds and a Jared Goff.
Well, that was more of a
I get it. It's a little different.
But
at the same time, Gardner Minshew might have a better career than Matt Stafford if he goes to the right team, like San Francisco with Kyle Shanahan or New Orleans or something like that. But I agree. Alex Smith, I think, is going to be a guy who's going to end up on a team that drafts a young guy.
I think it's going to be hard to pick where Alex Smith can go, and I do now putting the fact that Urban Meyer was his coach at Utah.
I think honestly that's the perfect landing spot for him.
I think that's a really good spot.
I don't think it's going to be a question.
I don't think it's a spot. The other places I could say is New England, the New England Patriots. I could see Bill Belichick kind of definitely giving him the keys right now because he is a veteran. He is a smart quarterback, very game management like. So that could be a guy that can definitely work with the Patriot way, I feel. And I don't think people would hate Alex Smith as a Patriot, but people would kind of get a little peeved about it. I'm going to just throw a crazy idea out there, and that is Alex Smith to the Houston Texans. And the reason why I say the Houston Texans...
I wouldn't hate that.
Here's why I would say that is because right now Houston is a dumpster fire. I think we can all agree right now.
So was Washington drama, last year.
And exactly. And the drama that is around the Houston Texans right now with Deshaun Watson, that's tough. And the fact that he if they don't trade him, they're wasting a lot of money as he sits on the couch. But also he's going to get fined. But who are you going to have to quarterback the team? To me, whether you trade Deshaun or not, you bring in a guy like Alex Smith, that kind of storyline, people aren't going to hate Alex Smith coming in. So I think it's definitely a, you got to peel that Band-Aid off on what you're going to do with Deshaun Watson. I do believe Houston Texans are going to take that L.
You got to eat that bullet.
You're going to take that L.
But if you eat the frog.
And here's the thing. You bring up familiarity with Urban Meyer.
I think that's the perfect landing spot for Alex Smith is with Urban Meyer. Because, Alex Smith drafted number 1 overall for a reason, and his head coach at the time was Urban Meyer.
And here's the thing, too. The coach right now for Houston was with him in Kansas City.
Oh, really?
And that was, I don't forget if he was the quarterback coach or the offensive coordinator for the time when Alex Smith threw 0 touchdowns to the wide receivers. 0 touchdowns. They still went to the playoffs, but Dwayne Bowe didn't score a touchdown, nothing. It was all tight ends and running backs. Mm-hmm. So, again, when you talk about everything going on around Houston, Alex Smith with their coach right now with Houston, to me that fits, and to me that's not going to hurt as much as to say bringing in Jameis Winston or bringing in Teddy Bridgewater. I think Houston fans will be more okay with Smith. And I'm not saying Smith is going to win a lot of games. I'm not saying that he's going to take you to the playoffs. It's just that handoff bridge. You got to take that bullet. You got to eat that L for Deshaun Watson. You got to hit on those draft picks if you do trade him. But Alex Smith, to me, where he is in his career, everything, I just think that he could at the very least heal a little bit of the wounds that is about to just hit
He's going to provide some stability for sure. I agree.
So, and that's a place where he'll start. Again, like if you hold on to Deshaun Watson,
he's gonna want to go to a place where number one, he's gonna play. Mm-hmm. Number two, he's also gonna want to feel appreciated and wanted as well. Because I'm not sure if you saw there was an interview that came out. I don't know the exact context of the way he said it or anything like that, but he kind of did say that the coaches in Washington didn't really want him playing. I mean, they started Dwayne Haskins over him.
Right.
At one point. So, of course, he was just coming back from injury and all those things, so I'll cut them a little bit of slack. Mm-hmm. But it took Dwayne Haskins being one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL to get him to start.
Yeah. So that's, those are, I think, like I said, pretty good places. Again, the places that will offer him to be a starter are not going to be the best situations. But it just, to me, the familiarity is definitely a key thing. So Jacksonville makes sense either as a backup or to start before Trevor gets in, or to just heal those wounds in Houston for whenever they do trade Deshaun Watson and bring in another. Even if they trade Deshaun and get a Justin Fields, I would sit Justin Fields behind Alex Smith to let Justin Fields learn, because again, you don't want to throw.
If you draft a quarterback and then also sign Alex Smith, you're looking for Alex Smith to at least start the first half of the season.
And to me, that's like a Ryan Fitzpatrick move, where you're not going to hate the quarterback. He's going to give you some good games. He's going to give you some bad games. He'll take the wins, take the losses. But eventually that transition to the new guy is going to happen. And I think Alex Smith is sadly probably going to have to understand that too at his age and what he's
in
gone
his
through.
mid-30s or something.
But again,
like that.
because he's the comeback kid, because of that great story of him coming back from all that injuries and that triumph, I just feel like going to Houston.
Hey, we'll love you in Jacksonville, bro. Come to Jacksonville, and I bet Houston would hate that too. We're division rivals. Come to Jacksonville. Come back to Urban Meyer. You'd love it here. Florida, no state taxes. Jacksonville has been rumored to be kind of like a vacation team. Hey, man, what a way to get off in the sunset, bro. Teach Trevor Lawrence what's up. And that's my pitch to Alex Smith. I know you're watching. Just kidding.
And also, first overall pick, too. So, first overall
pick. I mean, the similarities kind of just match up enough where, again, it would be another great story. And I don't want us to drag on and on about Alex Smith. But at the same time, his perfect landing spot would be Jacksonville.
It does make sense. So, I do like those two spots. I think those are perfect for Smith. And I think he just needs to ride off in the sunset, win, loss.
In the sunset, in Florida, Jacksonville. Come here. And that is Quarter Hat.
That's Quarter Hat.
That's Quarter Hat.
So we're now going to move on to our third segment. And this third segment is going to be personal. It's going to be This Is Personal as a segment. So we're going to be talking about your Jaguars, my Chargers, and their head coaching hires. We're going to grade the head coaching hires for both teams right now. And I'm going to start off with my Chargers because we talked a little bit about Jacksonville so far, especially with Trevor and everything like that. So we're going to get right into...
see Alex Smith going in. Sorry.
Oh, Alex... No, I wouldn't see Alex Smith.
We'll move on.
We'll move on from that. So we got this grading for my head coaches. So
I'm really interested in what you have to say.
I'm going to say right now for the Chargers, when it comes to the grading the head coaches and the defensive coordinators, I'm going to give them a B. And the reason why I'm going to give him a B for the head coaching hires is that, A, nobody saw Brandon Staley coming. And that's kind of how the Chargers pick their coaches. All the coaches that I've seen hired...
Mike McCoy, Anthony Lynn...
It comes out of left field. It's not my top 3 pick. Might not even be my top 5 pick. But then I sit back and I go, okay, I could see where they're going with this. Let's see how it goes. Because Mike McCoy made sense because they wanted to pass the ball a little bit more to get Rivers back, because Rivers wasn't playing good at one point where I think he threw 27 to 20 interceptions, and so they wanted to get him back to what he used to be. Anthony Lynn transitioned to LA. Rivers is in his twilight years. We got to focus on the running game more and transition to the new quarterback. And now, with Brandon Staley, he's a defensive coordinator mind. He used to play quarterback, so he's thinking.
Oh, really?
He's thinking outside of on the defensive side as a quarterback. So he does know how to play quarterback. He will give Justin Herbert some hints, but he's also going to focus on that defense. And that defense, we have talent, but we need to get better and stay healthy.
And the Los Angeles Rams defense has always been pretty good, as like when Sean McVay's been there, his defensive coordinator.
And so it makes a lot of sense. But like I said, he is a new coach. And that scares me because this is now the third coach that Tom Telesco's hired where this is his first job as a head coach. And the last two have been up and down and zigzag left and right. It's been hectic. So is this about to be another hectic quarterback where we're having injuries happen again and we're going up and down on everything? We need consistency. I like Herbert. I'm excited about Herbert. So that's why it's a B for him. But also, the reason why it's also a B, which kind of brings it down, it would have been an A, but it's a B because of who our defensive and offensive coordinator are. So we have
who's your offensive coordinator?
So,
I think that's way more important than defensive coordinator because more than likely he's going to be calling the plays.
So Ronaldo Hill's our defensive coordinator. He was the defensive back coach for the Broncos under Vic Fangio. And we have Chris Harris Jr. So I guess that there's that familiarity where he understands.
But again, Brandon Staley's more than going to be probably calling the plays for at least the first season.
He's calling the plays for the defense. So so Ronaldo Hill he's the defensive coordinator, but he's not calling the plays on defense.
Yep.
So our offensive coordinator is Joe Lombardi. So he's royalty.
Yes. Okay.
He is royalty.
Now. I like that.
He has worked with he was the quarterback coach over in New Orleans. So he's with Drew Brees, all those guys. Again, you see
that might be the underrated hiring on that coaching staff.
It's an underrated hiring. Like I said, I think this is his first job as a coordinator running the offense. But again, you were with Drew Brees, so there is that familiarity. And again, you see where the Chargers are going. They're trying to focus on Herbert and getting him to become an MVP. There's no question that Herbert has the potential to be an NFL MVP one year. Is that going to be 2 years from now, 3 years from now? We don't know. But he has that potential. The upside is crazy right now with Herbert. And you see that Joe Lombardi, off a quarterback coach, that makes sense. Brandon Staley was a quarterback, thinks like a quarterback. It makes sense what they're doing. They're going defense and they're going quarterback help. And I like it, but again, all three phases, defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, head coach, they're all new to the coordinating head coaching tree.
Roll the dice.
And it's a roll of the dice. It's a gamble. It's the unknown again, like I talked about. It's kind of an upside to not knowing kind of deal. I think this is an exciting group that we have going forward. I like our offensive line coach. 9 years as the Steelers offensive line coach. That's why I think Alejandro Villanueva will definitely be comfortable to come to the Chargers. Yep. Because Brian Bulaga signed with the Chargers last year because our former offensive line coach was the Packers O-line coach, and he had a lot of respect for
players. Follow the coaches,
and they follow the coaches. So Villanueva, I think, makes sense at tackle. I've been hearing a lot of people saying Trent Williams and so and so. I just think
you guys just need a new tackle.
Yeah, we just need a new tackle. But like I said, I like the upside. I just can't give it an A because it's just very unknown. And like I said, this is the third rookie head coach Telesco has hired since being the GM.
He probably just likes it.
People, but that's the there's that thing about the Chargers that we're cheap when it comes to the coaching hires. So we're cheaps. We're not, going after like big name guys. Fun fact: we were trying to go for Andy Reid, but he
went to Kansas City.
He went to Kansas City, as we see, and it's And the thing is, I wanted Bruce Arians to hire, but we went with Mike McCoy while he went to Arizona. So it's a you see what happens with some coaches and the coaches we hire. It's just I'm very nervous. I'm very excited. So hopefully we can turn. Hopefully it goes in the right direction. It's going to be a tough division. The Chiefs, obviously the 2-time AFC champs, Super Bowl.
Raiders.
The Raiders are an up and down team, but like I said, they're. You just never know. It's the Raider unknown.
I think that really the only thing that really saves that hire right there is Joe Lombardi as your offensive coordinator. I really, really like that, especially with him being the quarterback coach in New Orleans, being able to learn under Sean Payton and Drew Brees, who's another freaking coach on the field as well. Mm-hmm. That's a great hire. I think that's a really good hire, especially because he's going to be working hands-on more than likely with Justin Herbert. That's going to be a money move right there.
Absolutely, I agree. So, what do you grade out your guys for Jacksonville?
Jacksonville.
Because I have a personal grade for Jacksonville's hirings.
Jacksonville, you give me so many headaches. But so I'll just rip the Band-Aid off right now. I gave Urban Meyer a D+.
Really?
I gave him a D+.
This is why we're totally unqualified.
Totally unqualified. I'm not.
This is why
this opinion totally doesn't matter.
Because I guarantee you, everyone in the comments or whoever is gonna rip a new one. But again, I'm pretty sure you're just
not worried about the comments.
You're not worried about it.
I am the Jaguar fan here. I'm just kidding. But Urban Meyer getting to D+. I don't really like how he tends to leave his schools, especially with Ohio State. That whole thing with Ryan Day, mostly left because he was probably going to get fired. And then became like the athletic director or something like that. And then with this hiring of the Iowa strength coach, and then for him to go back on it almost right away, like the guy then resigned or whatever. Like, if you're gonna hire the guy, you got to know that there's gonna be some sort of backlash, especially with the way the world is today. So
the social media works.
Hey, I wouldn't have hired him, so I'm not saying it was a good hire, but stick to your guns, bro. But I gave him a D+. We'll see how it works. The one thing though is I like his coaching staff that we put around him, so I'll talk about that a little later. I also gave Trent Baalke, our new GM, another D+. Man, I gave him another D+. Here's why. Last time he was a general manager, he was with San Francisco with Jim Harbaugh. Ran Jim Harbaugh out of town. And then kind of like destroyed that San Francisco team.
That's true.
I'm not even sure if he like really put all the pieces together there, because I mean Patrick Willis was probably the previous regime. Like they had a lot of players that I don't think that maybe like Trent Baalke kind of ran Jim Harbaugh out of town.
Well, that was
especially with Colin Kaepernick,
fired.
Kind of being on fire with Jim Harbaugh. And then after a 7-9 season, you fire the guy? I don't get it, man. And then now he's paired up with another big-time college coach. I just don't see them really meshing unless Urban Meyer is his boss. Unless there's that chain of command where Urban Meyer has final say, which I think the Cons pretty much have given him. Trent Baalke is a D+. But here's the thing. I really, really like the coaching staff that he put around him. Number one, offensive coordinator Darrell Bevell. I actually gave a C+. I'm not in love with this hire. He was actually, I believe, the Lions' interim head coach after they fired Matt Patricia. And I want to say they played probably pretty well. I mean, it's hard to say, but I gave that one a C. I gave defensive coordinator Joe Cullen an A. I can't exactly remember what his background is right now, but I probably gave him an A for a reason. But number one hire that I really, really like is our passing game coordinator, Brian Schottenheimer. Working with Russell Wilson, Pete Carroll for the last several years, I gave that one an A. I gave Brian Schottenheimer an A. I really, really want to see what he can do with Trevor Lawrence. I think he's probably going to be the one who's more hands-on than Darrell Bevell or Urban Meyer is going to be Brian Schottenheimer, just because I think he has more experience working directly with the quarterbacks. And then I know, position coaches, linebackers, actually. I have both of them, Charlie Strong and Zach Orr. Charlie Strong, I really, really like a lot. Zach Orr, I think I've heard a lot of good things about him, just what I've been reading on Jaguar News, stuff like that. I really, really like that. And then Charlie Strong is actually the assistant head coach as well. And then our strength coach, what's that called? He kind of blew up after that.
The viral. When he had that
viral.
Video.
That's what I'm thinking of. That's the viral video of him smacking that dude on the college sideline when he was with Urban Meyer in Ohio State. And strength and conditioning coaches are by far and away the most fired up dudes, maybe except defensive line. So I'm just really, really excited for Anthony Schlegel. And he has nothing to do with the team, pretty much. And I gave Anthony Schlegel A+.
Just off the video.
A+, just from that video. I love it.
I like that. That's a good point. And by the way, about your 7-9 firing with Jim Harbaugh, the Chargers fired Marty Schottenheimer after a 14-2 season.
Oh, God.
So, by the way, rest in peace, Marty. You were my favorite head coach of all time. Just want to point that out there.
But Trent Baalke, don't like it. Don't like it at all. Urban Meyer, don't like it. Especially when we had better head coaches. So I don't know what's going on in the Cons' heads or anything like that, but they seem to they've given him the keys to the franchise in a sense. The only person who's ever been able to run everything and be successful has been Bill Belichick. We'll see how it goes.
I know Andy Reid was pretty successful with Philly, but obviously he never won with Philly. And
went to a Super Bowl, a couple NFC championships.
5, I believe, NFC championships.
With
5 with McNabb.
McNabb, yeah.
Yeah, and he got a lot of flack for a lot of stuff, but clearly Philly misses Andy Reid. The fact that you went out, your next coach was a guy that was part of Andy Reid's staff, and then you go get now a guy that's from Frank Wright, who is from that. So it's just interesting with that.
Yep.
But that I'm really shocked that you kind of gave it, because I do agree with Urban Meyer's situation. We don't know what a college head coach is going to be like when they haven't done it. But I do think that with Urban Meyer, they hired him because of Trevor Lawrence. Like, I'm positive on the fact that
he only would have came out of retirement at any team who would have had the number one pick with Trevor Lawrence.
Right.
And it was probably like an equal kind of courting with Urban Meyer and them. Like, if he was going to go out of coaching, it would have only been for that number one pick with Trevor Lawrence. Mm-hmm. It just happened to be Jacksonville, the one team that probably would have given that shot.
That's a good point. So
that's our coaching hires, and that's a little personal.
So that's a big thing. So we're going to wrap this up in the final here. And this is the last segment that we're going to leave you with for the first episode here on Totally Unqualified Sports. And this segment's called I'll Leave You With This. And this is something to ponder while the next time you guys get to see us. Just think about this throughout the days and everything coming up. So I originally was going to talk about something involving the quarterbacks coming in this draft. Due to recent circumstances, I think that this is a big situation that we need to talk about.
Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson, right?
Yep. And so I'm going to leave you with this about this. You have two of the top five, arguably the top three quarterbacks in the NFL, and they are about to possibly get traded. It is amazing to me how two franchises are choosing the staff over their quarterbacks. Their franchise quarterbacks that are easily the faces of the franchise. Not just the faces, but they are the team. When you think of the
Especially
Seahawks,
Russell.
When you think of the Seahawks, it's Russell Wilson. Not Steve Largent, not Cam Chancellor, not Richard Sherman. Name any Seahawk of old, Jim Zorn. You're not thinking that. You're thinking Russell. When you think of the Houston Texans, you're not thinking about Watt or Andre Johnson. It's Deshaun Watson. Mm-hmm. These are two quarterbacks that can change a franchise. The fact that
best quarterbacks of those franchises of all time.
The fact that you're going to give 3 first-round picks for these kind of guys shows
maybe
you the importance. Depending on the team.
Depending on the team. If they have like 2 first-round picks in this one and then another, like I could see that.
It's going to be crazy. Sure. And so the fact that you're having this situation right now, I think it shows I want to say the sadness of these franchises, but the fact that you're going to not allow them to be part of your business, the fact that you're not going to talk to them about how to help out. The fact is that these two quarterbacks want to be a part of the change. They want to be involved from the coaching hires to everything. You don't need to pick their number one guy. But what you can do is listen to them, listen to what they're saying, listen and look at the coaches and talk to them like, hey, I like your guy, but you know what? I really like this guy over here. I think this guy can help you. What do you think of this?
And here's why.
Exactly.
And explain why.
The fact that you guys want to the fact that Deshaun Watson now wants out. The fact that you could blame Bill O'Brien for burning a lot of players, a lot of bridges, but the fact of the matter is that now Deshaun Watson doesn't even want to play with you guys.
Because they never really asked for his opinion. They told him that they would, and then totally didn't care about it. And I read this. I saw this story about Russell Wilson today as well. That they were all sitting in a room with coaches, GMs, things like that, and his opinions to how to fix the offense and stuff like that were dismissed, and he ended up leaving the room.
And that's the biggest problem, is that you're going to choose Pete Carroll. What we saw with Tom Brady going to Tampa, he had his way. He picked Tampa. Russell and Deshaun have a say in where they could possibly get traded. But there's a little bit of a difference. But you see what has happened. Bill Belichick and the Patriots are now mediocre. They're a mediocre team until they get a good quarterback and get weapons around there. And right now, Bill Belichick and the Patriots look like the afterthought. And now Tom Brady is in a prime position to even run it back and win another Super Bowl with Tampa. And Tampa Bay's franchise, when you go through the history,
different now.
When you go through the history of Tampa Bay's franchise, it is a snake-bitten franchise. It has always been a snake-bitten franchise. But now Tom Brady's about to turn that around. He turned around another snake-bitten franchise in New England.
Yeah.
Drew Bledsoe made the Patriots relevant. Tom Brady turned it into an empire. And so now you have a situation where you have two quarterbacks that have changed. Russell Wilson has changed Seattle. I've seen more Seahawks fans than ever because of Russell. Deshaun Watson has made Houston relevant. And now both quarterbacks are possibly going to get traded and be on a new team.
Deshaun Watson for sure. Russell, we'll see. I think Russell still wants to be in Seattle, but Deshaun Watson's out of Houston.
And it's a sad moment to see these guys go. But I promise you this: if they both get traded, they're both going to win in the places that they're going to go. They're going to win, and the two other teams are going to suffer. It's going to be painful. It's going to be tough.
But it is what it is.
But but what they need to do, both franchises need to have a plan. Seattle has the best situation to bounce back because of the players that they have on that team. Houston is in a little bit of a trouble. That's why I said they're going to have to take the L. They're going to have to accept the fact that for the next 2 to 3 years, they are going to be at the bottom of the barrel. They will climb out of it.
In a bad division, too.
But it's going to be a tough division to climb out of, especially right now.
Colts would look really solid. Jacksonville will get Trevor Lawrence.
Tennessee has been consistent.
Tennessee's consistent.
So it's going to be a tough situation for both teams. I'm interested to see what happens. I'm interested to see where Deshaun Watson ends up. I will be shooketh if he ends up in Denver. I will be upset. As a Charger fan, I'll be upset because I know for a fact that he can turn that offense into a monster. And with Vic Fangio as a defensive-minded guy, who I think is a great defensive-minded guy, could turn Denver into what they were supposed to be this past season, which was a playoff team with a massive upside. And that's the difference between a talent like Russell and Deshaun compared to choosing the GMs and choosing them over it. Like you brought up, Balky and Harbaugh. Look what happened with when John Harbaugh left. Jim. I don't even know why I said John. I'm thinking of other things. Too similar. Jim. But the fact of the matter is that you saw what happened to the Niners. They lost a lot of players, and they spent in the dumpster for at least 2 years. They were able to come back, but it took them a second. That's what's going to happen with Houston. That's what's going to happen to Seattle if they trade their quarterbacks. Agreed. Regardless of what the draft, how many picks they got, regardless of what it is, with the way Seattle has drafted and with the way Houston has drafted, they are going to suffer massively. They have to keep these guys on the team, but they need to involve them in some way. The Chiefs involve Patrick Mahomes. Tampa Bay involves Tom Brady. Green Bay involves Aaron Rodgers sometimes. Barely. But you need to get them involved and win. These two guys are first ballot Hall of Famers from a talent standpoint. Russell Wilson will be a Hall of Famer with the way he's going. Deshaun Watson, with the way he's playing, is a Hall of Famer. If you let these guys go, you make sure those draft picks hit. But you also need to accept the fact that maybe I need to put my ego aside so that we can win multiple years. Otherwise, you're just going to be in the dumpster for a while, especially in the NFC West and especially with what the AFC South is about to become. This has been Totally Unqualified Sports. Make sure you like and subscribe. Give us a comment on how you think. Let us know what you think about any of the things that we talked about. But let's hear what you have to say.
You don't have to be civil. It's the comments.
Correct.
We know what's up.
We know how it goes.
But before we take off, we would like to actually dedicate this first episode to our grandfather who passed away about summertime 2020 from COVID. Alfred Michalowski, a lifelong Marine. We dedicate this episode to you.
He was a diehard Patriots fan. He loved Tom Brady. I know he would still be rooting for Tom right now and would be, over the moon to see him win in Tampa Bay. He was a big influence to us throughout our lives. He's helped us, taught us many lessons in life, and we still miss him to this day. And I know for a fact that as we are doing this podcast in his house, I know that for a fact he'd be sitting here with us and talking football with us all the time. So this is dedicated to you, Grandpa. We love you. We miss you. And this has been Totally Unqualified Sports.